Welcome to Fire Engineering Radio and to our show, Pride and Ownership, The Love for the Job. I'm your host, Chief Rick Lasky. We always start off with a little bit of an update on a couple things. One is I had a great visit out in Loveland Sims with Chief Otto Hubner. He's the chief out there in Ohio, just outside Cincy. What a great guy. He's a Mason. He's a brother, and times two, as our good friend Harry Carter would say. Great department, not just because Billy Goldfeder works for him, but I talked to Billy the other day. I said, man, you've got an incredible boss. That's the kind of chief you dream working for because, man, what a good guy. He reminds me of some of those chiefs we've talked about in the past that, if you love the job just a little bit, your goal with him. What a great guy, a great group of people. That whole area, they've had a tough go lately. The death of the captain with their firefighter Coleraine and that area just... They pulled together as a family, as you would expect, and they're working through it. So our hearts are out to them, but what a great group of folks. We've got something pretty cool coming up. I've mentioned this before. The Heroes of Denton County is an organization, and it is strictly not-for-profit. They've got all their paperwork in order. I have the honor and privilege of serving as an executive board member with some great folks, Chief Eric Metzger from Flower Mound, Chief Ross Chadwick from the Denton Fire Department, Flower Mound, Texas, is where Eric's from. Some local folks, some business folks, some sports people, politicians, good group. And it's similar to what you hear or you understand of the 100 Club. We've talked about that before. We've written about taking care of your firefighters and your police officers and their families in the event there was a line of duty death. And you don't want that to happen, but reality is what it is. And as much as you want to see the numbers go down, they're still going to happen. We still need to be those first responders for the first responders. And the Heroes of Denton County was established by Chief Chadwick from the city of Denton, Texas, and a few other folks after 9/11 to take care of those police officers and firefighters. And the group's been able to do a great job. Well, this year on September 11th, we have our banquet. It's our fundraising banquet. And we've got a guest speaker. We usually try to get some good folks in there. We've had Colonel Birdwell was seriously injured at the Pentagon when the plane crashed in on 9/11, and what a great, incredible speaker. He runs the FACE, the Fire Ministries, and does a lot of work for servicemen and women that have been burned. This year, we have Marcus Luttrell as our guest speaker. Marcus is a former United States Navy SEAL, author of the book Lone Survivor, and what an incredible story. It's going to be made into a movie, a Navy Cross winner. What an incredible man, what an incredible Texan. His twin brother is another Navy SEAL, and just unbelievable. First of all, I told you before, that's one of the books we've placed, besides all the Penwell books that we stick in the firehouses and that we use for our promotional exams, we use a variety of books now. We've got Tony Dungy's, and I've mentioned these before, but Tony Dungy's Quiet Strength, the coach in the Indianapolis Colts. What a great team-building book. And Cal Ripken's book, 8 Essential Values. We had to go buy extra copies of this book. People weren't giving it up. Lone Survivor. It's just an incredible team building, never leaving a buddy behind. What it takes, perseverance, just character building, everything. It's just, oh my God, it's just an incredible story. What this man went through is nothing short of just absolutely amazing. And he is truly one of those heroes. And we have him this year for our banquet as our keynote. So that's in September, and that's going to be great. And the last thing before we get started with visit with our guest, I had the honor of speaking at the FDIC. Actually, I call it the FDIC. It's the Fire Engineering Chicago. Whenever Fire Engineering does a conference, I always associate it right away with FDIC, with the Fire Department Instructors Conference that we do in Indy. But Fire Engineering Chicago, and we've got another one coming up in Fort Worth, Texas, in October, and that'll be on October 25th and 26th in Fort Worth. And that information's on the website. Obviously, if you're here now, you're on, unless somebody download this and you're listening to it, and that's always www.fireengineering.com. But what a great weekend. I mean, there's a lot of folks, unfortunately, especially nowadays with budgets, that can't make it to Indy. They can't make it to some of the big conferences to get into some of the programs. And this is an incredible weekend. I mean, the instructors, you have an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes, and it was great to read the evaluations afterwards. Not enough time, and that's always a great thing when people come up to you. As much as you want to spend more time with them, but you can't because you want to get other folks on the stage. Not enough time. Too many great topics, but not enough time. Or it was just amazing that I was able to listen to so many great instructors. And we had Captain Billy Gust in there, and obviously Glenn Corbett was there doing his things, and Chief Halton. Dave McGrail was there. It just, the list of folks, Dave Dotson. I mean, we had a conversation at the end with Chief Halton, a few of us, about these programs and about where they're going and what they've done. And Mike Champa was there the night before. I mean, the list goes on. And for one weekend, you're able to sit in a classroom. Not only that, fire engineering fed you breakfast, lunch. I mean, they had things planned throughout the day, the evening. What an incredible event! Even if you can't make it to the big show, it's worth it. But here's another way. Again, every time we do one of these shows, I talk about how fire engineering is cutting edge, whether it's with the website, the things they're doing, or the books they're publishing, the videos, and the list goes on and on. Here's one more way of making things happen. They are definitely people that make things happen. So check out the website. Make the phone calls if you have to. Call me. I'll be happy to tell you all about that weekend. I'll share with you the notes I took. I took notes from Billy Gustin. I took notes from Dave. I mean, it's just amazing. It's an amazing weekend. So I can't just say enough great things about it. Great people. All right. Speaking of great people, we've got a guest on our show today, and we've tried to visit with some different folks for you. To bring you a variety of topics. We had Chief John Salka, Battalion Commander from the 18th Battalion in the Bronx, talking leadership last time. We've had some great people on the show. There's been a few where I've just kind of spotted off about a few things. The emails have been great. Thank you. We're getting a ton of feedback. But today, we got another good brother on the show. One of my buddies, a true fire service professional. We're going to have some fun. We're going to talk about some good stuff. We're going to talk about a little bit of some sad stuff, about how we're taking care of that. But today our special guest is Chief Joe Florentino. Chief Florentino, Brother Joe, is the chief of the Little Elm, Texas Fire Department, which is just northeast of Louisville. Actually, if you got on a boat and you headed northeast across Lake Louisville, you'd be on the shores of Little Elm. But a rapidly growing community, a busy fire department. I've had the privilege of going there and visiting over coffee, which has turned into always to like a 2-hour tactics and strategy and talking fire. You want to talk about a group of young and some experienced older firefighters that love talking about the job. Go to Joe's shop in Little Elm, and you're going to run into some great people. But Chief Joey Florentino, welcome to the show, pal.
Well, thank you, Chief. I appreciate it.
Joe, there's just so many folks. And Joe has done some incredible things. We want to talk about some of those things. I know I'm always tooting his horn for him because if you know him, he's probably one of the most modest people you'll meet, and he's definitely one of those that always gives credit to everyone else and never takes it himself. He's always good to push off those good things on other folks. But Joe, you're in Little Elm now, fire chief there. And if for those of you that don't know the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, I mean, he's right there next to Frisco, right outside McKinney, Plano, the Colony, Louisville. It is a rapidly growing area. I mean, so much so, and I think we're going to talk about some of the challenges, just keeping up with Joey, how are you guys keeping up with the growth there?
Well, it's difficult, and, it's not just fire department. It blends all over this town. But, planning is probably the biggest thing, and as you know, I'm on the phone all the time. I'm talking with other fire departments. I'm trying to find out what they're doing, and people don't realize. If you were here in 1999, there was roughly 3,000 people. Now we're over 23,000 people, and just trying to keep up with that. It's a challenge. It really is.
Well, and it may not sound 23,000. I mean, we're talking some that have a couple 100,000 and some more than that, and the average. You need to see this place, folks. You need to see the map on the potential for growth there. Is absolutely incredible. And Joe, I mean, citywide, I know you've got some great bosses there. We've talked about that before. That really support the fire department. How's it going budget-wise right now? I mean, a lot of folks we're seeing some layoffs in some places and some other things, but how's it looking budget-wise for you?
Well, we've been very fortunate the last couple of budgets to really expand our services. As you know, we put some trucks online. We put 18 new members online. We opened a new station. So we've been fortunate. I think this year, like everyone else, is going to be lean. I don't see us cutting back on anything. I still think we're going to add to the budget, so we're in the middle of that process, and it looks very positive. And the fortunate side, I guess, to us is our commercial growth is what's taken off now, and that's what we needed to take off. And I think that's going to help us for the future.
Well, and I mean, the challenge is keeping up with apparatus and stations. I know you guys just opened up a brand new firehouse and with some new rigs and folks. What would you, if you were going to pick the top three? Well, let's do it. Top three bits of advice you would give to some of the fire chiefs out there that are in the same situation, because there's a lot of them that are sitting there. There's a lot that are going through some rough times. They're landlocked. You know, there's not much going on, and they're trying to rub two nickels together to make a quarter. But for those that are facing that growth, what are three? Let's go advice and maybe some little how to sidestep some landmines for them. Three biggies on what to do and maybe what not to do.
Well,
planning wise,
Yeah, planning wise is and that's probably been the hardest part because you have to, talking about the networking again and determining the level of service you want to provide. And of course, everybody wants to be the best, but what is going to be realistic on what the city can afford and where it's going. And we're our own worst enemy always in the fire service. We want to provide more for less, and we're always going to do that. But you really have to put a reality stamp on that. If you're sitting in your office thinking I'm going to blow out the door with 3 or 4 stations in a short amount of time, and that's not what's going on in town hall. And I think that's where the reality check constantly has to be as a measuring point on how to get to those levels that you want to provide. Well, having that vision and having that plan and making sure you're executing that along with your council members and even your business folks on the vision of where they want to see this town is really important.
Well, and Joe, you probably see it too, buddy, where you get some of the residents, they demand, and rightfully so, they're the ones paying, writing the checks, if you will, that they want a higher level of service. They want a professional fire department. They want good folks showing up, take care of them. But, that as well as, like you said, some of our, and it's not just the younger firefighters, it's some of the guys and gals with some of the, time on the job that sometimes I think they expect, we should be able to do this and that, and they're good folks, good-hearted. Like I said, firefighters are the best people on the face of the earth, but they sometimes forget that there's a lot more going on in the city than just us. And I'm going to have my boss on here. I can't think of a better person to bring on, my city manager, and talk about the challenges and what goes on at City Hall, like you said, with your council members, Joey, and then bringing your business owners in. You know what? And I want to make sure I don't leave this. Tell me about the mutual aid and what's going on out there and how you're making things happen. Because with the growth, you got to bring in everybody else. You're helping each other. But how's that working out that way?
Well, it's working out wonderful, and that is a lesson I learned, in the time I spent with Highland Village and being next to Louisville and the flower mounds and how well we work together. And you started the simple lunches. Let's get together once a week or twice a month and let's talk about things. Sometimes we talk about sports. The next thing you know, we're talking about fire department. It always leads back to those things. And we've tried to emulate that same situation on this side of the lake. And meeting with the Colony, meeting with the Frisco, the Aubreys, Oak Points, and talk and share the resources. Obviously, we can't all get everything at once, but who's getting this and who's getting that? And I think I need one of those. And that has really worked well. 3 years, we actually, and you know this, that we don't operate on a CAD system because we're dispatched out of a county system, but we have manually done a box card system, and we actually run that now without even dispatch having it, which is, has just come about due to networking and having those lunches,
right.
Sitting down and having coffee.
Well, and I know you're fortunate that you've got, because it's not always been that way. I know when I first got here 8 years ago, the scanner was kind of silent. If Little Elm or Aubrey or Pilot Point or Crum or somebody went to a structure fire Sanger, you heard the one set of tones, and pretty much that was it. And not to toot our horn, but I'm proud of the fact that the chief in Sanger nears you, one of our guys in Louisville, and the chief of Crum's one of our guys in Louisville, and the chief of Pilot Point is a retired captain from Louisville.
That's right.
You've got some other guys out there, but Joe, it's when you tone out. Let's say when Little Elm tones out for a structure fire Aubrey, you hear all these tones going off now with different agencies, and I guess what's frustrating for me, buddy, is in my travels is that there's still fire departments out there that refuse to work together refuse. I mean, they'll have their neighbors, their next-door neighbors. Joe, I was standing outside at lunchtime at a department I was teaching. I looked across the highway, and there's a strip center, and there's middle one's burned out. And I said, "Wow, you guys did a good job. What happened there?" They go, "Well, we didn't go." I go, "Well, what do you mean to go? It's across the street." And they said, "Well, that's in the city. We're in the county, and they don't call us to fight fires, but they call the department next to us that drove through our district to get there." I'm going, "Oh my God!" I mean, and usually it's two chiefs that aren't getting along. It has nothing to do with the guys. It's just how silly. But buddy, I mean, when you tell me, there's a lot of departments out there that are struggling trying to make that mutual aid happen, or what do I do? Run us through. Give me a one alarm. Let's go. Reported structure fire and pull up, and you got a job in Little Elm. What do you got coming? And then how do you work this mutual aid with fill-ins and everything? Because most of the departments around here are one station. Some are just volley joints, right? With maybe some guys in the firehouse, right?
Correct.
Walk
most
of
us all here are one or two stations at most, and this goes back again to what level of service do you want to provide, and you also have to provide the safety. And you can't, and I think Chief Goldfeder talks about this, you can't do more if you don't have, if you need that 18 people on the first alarm, then you better get it. And that's what we've worked out here with Oak Point and Aubrey and all the surrounding towns. Little Elm bangs out with a one-alarm structure fire right off the bat. We get an engine from Oak Point and Aubrey. That comes automatic. If we go to a working fire, anything showing smoke, anybody indicating smoke, if the police get on scene first, we get an additional engine from the Colony, additional engine from Frisco. Then we move it up, to a second alarm, and we'll go with Pilot Point, we'll go with Sanger, Salina, Prosper. And it continues like that, and the fill-ins all continue on its own also. So.
Well, what's kind of funny about that, like I said, you've got most of those places, like most fire departments out there, you've got guys that are volunteering at two different places. You got guys that are volunteering on their days off from the paid joint, and, maybe that's why we've been able to tackle some of the ego things a little bit, too, is that you've got people that really love the job. They obviously, hey, first of all, the definition of a volunteer to me, it's right up there. The definition of a firefighter I've said for years is selflessness. Well, to be a volunteer, especially nowadays with the demands, Joe, it's recruitment and retention's at a national crisis level in the volunteer fire services. I know you've served on some committees for the I chiefs and that. Can we move? Let's move. Just change directions for a little bit. I know things are moving and you're growing. You got a good sized paid force there. But let's talk volunteer fire service, especially with your background. Doing that for so many years for the I chiefs and some other things. What do you think are some of the major issues, and then how do we tackle them? Recruitment, retention, everything. What do we do, bud? I know we probably don't have 6 hours to talk about that. But
where do we start on that?
Pick a couple. I mean,
Yeah. Let me just touch one point before we move on to this one, and that is, on the relationship, between two fire departments, especially who are not responding, and they share a big border together. Somebody needs to pick up the phone and start that initial conversation. When and Aubrey and Little Elm was always, I've worked together, but I always sensed something when I got here. And, when I pick up the phone, I talk to Chief Starr, and Chief Starr said to me, quite frankly, you know what, I've never had any kind of direct talks, and we never had a plan in place. And, once we got that, everything came down, all the walls, all the tension, and that's what I think a lot of someone needs to take the first step and make the phone call. There's no reason why. I believe in a borderless system, and I think the whole country should be a borderless system.
And that's a great point. And Mike Starr is definitely another mover and shaker, and but it takes, like you say, I'll say it takes a grown up, and not that Mike wasn't that way. I'm just saying it takes
right.
It takes us. Let's be the professionals and the grown ups that we talk and tell people that we are. And that's the only way you can make it happen, especially with some of the places, Joe, that are strictly volunteer. I mean, to try and pull up and attack and work a structure fire by yourself. Now, I understand there's some places out there with 30,000 fire departments in this country that's all they've got. They pull up and they're waiting like 20, 30 minutes, even sometimes longer, to get help in from another, from hundreds of square miles, if you will, away.
Sure.
But you're right. And wouldn't it be nice, Joe, you made a very good point, if we could just get to a point where we got everybody kind of working together nationally,
Sure, absolutely.
Well, let's tackle one thing. I just thought this while you were saying that when you talked about knocking down walls and stuff, is talk about, can we visit a little bit the training that it takes to get a volunteer and or to keep them active and all that? Have you had any experiences with or what makes that work, or what you can do to influence that?
There, what I have found out talking with career personnel and volunteer personnel is especially when you're making the transition, going to a combination type department. What's going to happen by default, obviously, is your career personnel, if they're on like a 24/48 like we are, by default, your career person is going to have more experience and gather training just by showing up to work without even doing anything extra. And that, what I have found through my research and my interviews, is where sometimes that's where the rub starts. The rub starts is because sometimes the career people don't see the volunteers on a regular basis. 3 o'clock in the morning, we're going to get a good response sometimes from the volunteers on a structure fire. Now, at 3 o'clock in the morning, the truck's pulling out, and the career staff is looking at someone maybe who hasn't shown up for the last 3 months. And now we're trying to guess where that person is as far as level, because we're about to enter a house. And what I have found out, and this was a program we implemented in Highland Village, and we also do it here in Little Elm, is we do an on-shift volunteer program, which I know is not wildly popular, but both towns that we've tried it in has been amazingly successful. We bring our volunteers in instead of every third day, we bring them in every sixth day. If it's during the week, we bring them in for 12 hours. If it's on a weekend, it's a 24-hour shift. And what we find out is they are incorporated into everything that we do, even though it only really adds to maybe about 60 hours a month, which is still a lot of time for a volunteer. But it brings them into the fold. They start picking up the calls. They start picking up the training on a more regular basis. There is no difference when they get off the truck. You can't tell who's a career and who's a volunteer in this department.
Well,
so we find out, that has worked very well.
And Joey, let me just point out something too. Not every fire department out there can go entirely paid or paid. There's just, there's paid departments now that are fighting to hang on to people. And, to me, a firefighter is a firefighter. Volunteer, combination, paid, I love them all. And there are some folks that, you have to have one or the other. It's just not even to get into that as much as just, it goes back to what kind of service do you want to provide for your community. And some places just don't have the ability. And I don't think there's anything wrong with having an incentive program of some kind to have volunteers come and spend a night. I know I was in Maryland, and they've got some programs in one county there, buddy, where they're paying for your college. If you've got 2 years, if you've got 2 years of with the department or more, they will pay, and you have to stay active with them for your college. You can't go away, but you got to do it there. Some places are paying for daycare. Some places where they're taking, they're repo and they're taking homes back from people, or keeping those homes. And some of these communities have real expensive housing, and allowing volunteers to live with their families so they can respond. I mean, there's some creative things you can do out there to address some of these situations. But big thing with that is it's just some places there's just no way you're going to turn around and pay everybody as much as you'd like to see that. So you have to be creative, Joey. You have to come up with something.
You have to, and it involves the big word. The big word is change. And if you can't do it like you did it yesterday, then you're going to have to figure out a new way to do it today. And they're difficult. I come, especially on the volunteer side, I come from the Greenlawn, New York Fire Department. It's steeped in tradition. It goes back over 100 years, and they still have over 120 active volunteers. It's just that is a different animal than what we're dealing with probably in the rest of the country. And they're just not volunteering like they used to. And we've got to figure out why, and then we've got to try to accommodate if we're going to stay into that program.
You used to be able to, remember way back when, that you could work at the hardware store, and when the whistle blew, you could leave. Or you could leave the job and you can go. And that's not the way it is anymore in a lot of places. It's hard. The other bosses go, wait a minute, I mean, I've got a business to run here. I'm just barely staying in business as it is. You can't run out the door every time the whistle blows. And with more and more demands for service, which brings about the training needs. I mean, Eddie Buchanan, our brother Eddie in Hanover, Virginia, if you're looking for ways to train, he's had over 500 volunteers he was training, ways to make that work. Eddie's got some great ideas. But, Joe, you're Jerry Duffield, really close to you, in Salina now, right?
Yes.
Chief of Salina Battalion, Chief of Farmers Branch. It was funny, I was teaching a program for him, and I was coming back pretty late through there. I went to see a fire in another town, not God, it sounds like you're going to see a movie. But went to buff a fire neighboring town. Come back through, and I went, how do you keep all the cars here at midnight or 1 in the morning? He said, well, he goes, you know what I did? And he goes, don't laugh at me. He goes, I put Xboxes in the firehouse. And I said, well, he goes, yeah. He goes, years ago we used to get some of the guys to come up and train and hang out and wait for the bell to go off for the pager, and they played cards or they did something to stay active when they weren't training. He says, I put Xboxes in here. And he goes, after hours, he goes, I've got guys signed up waiting. And as much as it sounds silly, he gets the guys and gals in the firehouse, Joe, and out the door they go when the bell rings.
Those are the things you have to look at. You really do. You have to cater to those kind of needs. So.
And I think, some of the other frustrations, Bud, correct me if I'm wrong, is for some of the volunteer chiefs or the training officers, is you're training people a lot of times only to have them leave because they move or they move on or they don't, you got that, what is it, you've got that 1 to 5 to 7 years, you get the 1 to 3 years of they're there and then they're gone. Then you got that group from 3 to 7 that stay a while. You've got a handful that are like 15 years, and then you've got a select few that are there longer than 25 in a lot of places. The demands nowadays that everything you have to be trained on for being a volunteer is just incredible. And people are still trying to work the real job and put food on the table and take care of their families, and with soccer games and everything else going on, it's just getting harder and harder. But I don't know. I don't know where the best answer is.
Yeah, and I don't know. And there's a lot of great successful programs. I've been involved with the International Association of Fire Chiefs. I've been a board member of the Volunteer and Combination Officers section, and we've got a wonderful website, vcos.org, and it has our red, white, and blue ribbon reports that are all written on some of these topics in detail. And there's a lot of resources on there and a lot of different plans on successful approaches on some of these issues. So.
Well, and what was one more time? What was that website again?
It's www.vcos.org.
I mean, there's folks out there that are good at taking care of business like that. There are folks out there that have stuff to offer. This is one site. I don't know. It's tough. It's tough, and nowadays with trying to find ways to make things happen, everything else. There's another website I tell people about. Is the National Volunteer Fire Council. That's another website, Joe, I know you're familiar with, www.nv as in Victor, fc as in Charles.org, nationalvolunteerfirecouncil.org. Another good organization that, just like all the rest of them, are there to help and assist and defend and protect the rights and privileges and the safety, most importantly, of the volunteer fire services. So, but a lot of growth going on, Joe. A lot of people in the same situation as what's going on with these folks. But hey, let me kind of again change topics here. You're currently the president of Denton County Fire Chiefs Association. Tell me a little bit about that organization and what you guys do and everything, and some of the things you've accomplished in the past.
Sure. Well, it's been a very, I think, one of the more successful county fire chief organizations. I think it has a unique quality that these members just come together. I've never seen more united in different fronts, whichever direction we're heading in, than the Denton County Fire Chiefs. So I'm very proud to be a member and proud to lead this organization. It's a hub and spoke type group, I guess. There's several people who take the lead on certain things, and there always seems to be several chiefs who support those things. So, and as you know, we have the wonderful our Memorial Park, which is just dedicated to the fire service in general. One of the nicest parks, and I know you've talked about it around in this area. So we're really proud of that. We have our hazmat trailers that we came together and put together to support the county. It's just a lot of things. And then, of course, we have our Denton County Funeral Chiefs Committee. Well,
and you know what? I kind of wanted to lead to that. I mentioned that to you before we got on, was, being able to talk about that. They kept, it's kind of one of those things where it was so wonderful of you to step up and take the nomination to be vice president, then president. Sometimes, like me, when you don't show up to the nomination meeting, they nominate you and vote you in, and then you're stuck. But, you do what you want to do, and we talked about it, every year trying, like you said, to accomplish something big, whether it was the task force or just whatever with the Chiefs. And the one year we decided, enough is enough. There's some organizations, different parts of the country that are helping, but there wasn't really anything here when it came to not only making sure we investigated a line of duty death, properly, but then running the funeral. And we could spend a whole nother show at least talking about the line of duty death investigation protocol side of things. Let's talk about the funeral chief's guidelines, Joey. And unfortunately, we've had to activate the team several times here. We've got some incredible people, but let's talk about that. How is it made up, and what happens, and run us through unfortunately a bad incident. Who calls you, and how did that get the ball rolling?
The original committee was formed. I'll just backtrack quickly on the document. And the document, it's not an original publication. It was let's go out and research what's out there. And unfortunately, you and I have both been to firefighter funerals, and we've been to some wonderful dedications. And that have memorialized. But you and I both know there's sometimes, that maybe there was I don't want to say a misstep, or something that could have been done maybe a little bit further, or maybe could have followed the traditions. And it goes along with, like you've been emphasizing, let's keep the traditions alive. We needed a document to compile things and to keep things on the track for even long past we're gone. And I think that's the main premises of this document is what the Denton County Fire Chiefs Association did, formed a committee, got together, compiled all the resources we could, verified the resources, and then put it in a document that is fairly easy to use, and this document is open to anyone who wants it. So,
and we did, and you gave, like you said, we gave the credit to those.
Sure.
That we did. We've said in the fire service, why go out and try to reinvent the wheel?
Right.
Let's use what we've got from each other, and we noted all those organizations that are in there. First of all, before we forget, if somebody wanted a copy of that, Joe, how would they get that from you?
The easiest way to go is the website is www.dentoncounty.com, and then it's /fire departments with an S. And that will bring you to the Denton County Fire Chiefs page. And then there is the Funeral Chiefs Committee link right on that page. That'll bring you to the document. It's in PDF form. It's about 72 pages. I can print it out and keep that on file. It does have our contact information on the front page of that document. And we have assisted even different parts of the country, not just Texas, on explaining that document and how it works.
And there are some. Obviously there's the Everyone Goes Home program and some different things, but, long and the short is we needed something right here in the Metroplex. Obviously the heavy hitters, Dallas and Fort Worth, take care of business, but there were so many around us that just, and that's such a horrible, horrible time, as we've all discussed before. You want to do the right thing. You want to, but you want to be professional. You don't want to be intrusive. You want to make sure that you're just there to assist them, kind of in a silent way. You and I, we've run them together to where we've said, what we don't want is anyone to even notice we're here, but all they want to see is something that went off flawlessly, and we did the right thing for that brother or sister and their family, and provided a good and wonderful service. And just take the pressure off of the folks intimately involved. All they should have to worry about, Joey, right, is sending one of theirs off the right way, and not have to go through they've got enough stress going on with someone they just lost, let alone to worry about missing something that someone may say, why, and certain things affect people differently. So to be able to provide that service, and you guys, Joey, with our particular group, supplies wise, we furnish bunting and gloves and all kinds of things, right, to help folks out.
That's correct. We have all the bunting, right? Like you said, the bunting and the gloves, the flag. We know how to prep the case on the steps. We have honor guard specialists. We have pipe and drum specialists. So we can come on board and again, be the background. But we know how much those fire departments want to be involved in that funeral. But sometimes during those times, it's a cloudy situation, and you're trying to think clear, and that's difficult to do when you're emotionally attached.
Well, and that document, I know I brag on it everywhere I teach, and every time I'm visiting somewhere. It is, if you're looking for something, like Joe said, if you're looking for something to cannibalize, cut up a little bit, cut and paste, whatever, it's there for you. Whatever works for you, whether it's the forms or the parts and the pieces, it is. It's probably one of the best documents because of the resources we use. There's some pretty good people. Billy Peters from fire engineering had one of his policies that he did through fire engineering, and so many others that we're able to glean some of the best information. But I'm telling you, there's a lot of great things out there. This is just one more resource for folks, and you don't want to ever use it. But again, reality is what it is, and we want to make sure we do the right thing when the time comes. And Joe, I mean, I don't know. It's got to be a great feeling. I mean, it's one thing to help, a citizen, but to help someone's family through that horrible time, it's got to be a great feeling for you to know that you've done that.
It is a great feeling, and I know that the chiefs who have worked, and they just did one down here, just south of the Metroplex, and in Teague, correct, thank you. And I know that when the guys come back, of course, it's a sad time, but you really do have a rewarding feeling that everything was done the way it should have been done, and the dedication of that firefighter and the sacrifice that person made is going to be remembered.
Well, it comes down to, we've said before too, you worry about the things you can fix, not the things you can't. As much as we want, we can't go back in time and change what happened, but we can change what happens from that point forward. And the little part, though it's a major role, that you and your committee play in making sure that that goes right is so vitally important. And I think it's a very fulfilling feeling when you leave. You go, I really got to truly step up and be that brother or sister that we've talked about, helping someone who's going through a very bad time. So if anybody wants a copy of that policy, contact Chief, or actually, go to the website that he gave you, and we're going to give Joe's email at the end too. So if you get kind of lost with that, Joey can point you in the right direction as well. But a couple more things here, Joe, before we wrap things up. Tell me, and I know a lot of people are doing things now together, and some are still not working as well as we want them to in some parts of the country. But how hard was it for you in this county to get the departments together to form the task force, whether it was for Katrina or Rita, or going up to Nakona when we have the wildland fires, or the Panhandle, hundreds of homes and some departments really strapped. I mean, how hard was it to bring those folks together?
Well, in this county, again, Chief, and this goes back to the Fire Chiefs Association. This county is on the phone saying, what can we do, and how quick can we get there? And I didn't have, when we did the first one, either we went to Panhandle and Nakona. I can't remember which one.
Nakona was first, yeah.
Nakona was first. I don't think we had any problems. I think I spent an hour on the phone, and we had ourselves a task force to go up. So,
and there's some key people. I mean, our Denton County's emergency management chief, Jody Gonzalez, heads over. That's the fire marshal's office. That's everything falls into emergency management for the county. Jody's another mover and shaker and forward thinker and planner. And I know you worked for him as an bomb and arson investigator
5.5 years
for a while, even with your accelerant dog. And Jody is. It takes having that kind of person too at the top of this whole thing. When we're looking at our county, a lot of people have the cooperation, or they've got someone that was put in there for whatever reason. That's not Jody Gonzalez. Jody Gonzalez makes things happen. So it's a matter of, like you say, of you as the president of the Denton County Fire Chiefs getting on the phone with Jody and go, okay, are we going or are we not? And this is not self-deploying, right, Joe? This is not. We're not just taking off and going.
No.
We're running through. But sometimes you got to utch some people, and sometimes when it's not declared a disaster yet, right. you have to make that contact, that phone call or whatever, to get it kind of on the official side. We're not self-deploying and running out of county with all kinds of stuff and resources.
No.
But now, I mean, and it's set up in such a way. Are we deploying out to go take care of somebody, and are we depleting that whole deploying and depleting thing, are we still covering things back home?
Yeah, and that, again, I was talking about the hub and spoke. When you talk about this type of response, again, yeah, you talk about Jody's office, and that's what Jody's office does so well, is they're going to take their resource list, and they're going to say, yeah, Little Elm is going to send a brush and 4 personnel, and because I can't down any engines at that time, and another department might be able to send 2 engines, and no brush trucks. So it worked out real well, and we managed the resources. Nobody got depleted. Everybody knew we were going as far as the whole county, and we have such a good mutual aid back and forth. Everything worked out great.
Well, I know when Gainesville, Texas flooded, the city and most of the city, big city, by the way, they were just strapped like anyone would be. Boy, unfortunately some fatalities with civilians and other things, and just, again, people sitting on top of houses and other stuff. And I know one phone call through Jody's office, next thing you know, I think we're on the road. Within about 20 minutes, I think the total count was 22 pieces of apparatus with 59 firefighters, dive teams, Swiftwater. I know we went up to Nakona, Joe. We brought fuel. We brought our own mechanics, so we can sustain for a while. When you show up on someone's doorstep with an entire, well, I don't even call it fire department. I mean, maybe it is, but for some people. But it just, with all that apparatus and people, and you stand up, you pull up, and you go, well, not bowing up and sticking your chest out. You're supposed to say, hey, we're here to help you. What do you need? And whether it's someone sitting in the EOC taking care of business, or going out and doing some work and relieving people and assisting them and making that bad time go away, there was several examples of how well that worked just with that.
That's correct. Yeah.
I mean, just it was easy to make all that happen, and it comes down to, Joey, you said it earlier. Someone has to pick up the phone to get things going, and you got to get to a point where you just, enough is enough. We're all cut from the same cloth here. We're all in the fire service. We're all firefighters. Some of us are, firefighters that put on a chief's costume, if you will. I know you're a true firefighter at heart and a brother, and it just takes some of that, knocking out some of those walls to make these things happen. I don't know. It's a lot of work ahead of us, but with good folks like yourself and some of the other guys that are out there, I know one thing that I've always admired about you is you've got this. You want to talk about Tony Dungy's quiet strength? You got this quiet strength. I would never want to piss you off, but at the same time, I think things could be blown up next to you, and you're just going to look at it and go, all right. But seriously, you have this way of getting things done sometimes. A lot of times you're about 10 minutes ahead of all of us when it comes to doing it, and my hat's off to you. And I'm honored to know you, buddy. I'm glad you had some time to spend with us today. And before we clock out here, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, talk about some issues you may have done when you were, serving with the I-Chiefs on that board, or some of the growth issues in Little Elm and how you're dealing with that, and maybe they can glean some ideas on how you're just keeping up with the growth, and or anything from the Denton County Fire Chiefs, whether it's the policy or any of the things along that. How can they get a hold of you? Is there email address and maybe a phone number?
Sure. We'll go with the email address is the letter J, Florentino, which is FLORENTINO, and it's at Little Elm. It's all one word, so there's a double E there, littleelm.org. And my phone number is 214-975-0425. And if you go to the vcos.org website, there's board contacts. All my information's there, mailing address, fax numbers, all that kind of stuff you can find. But, yeah, really anything that anyone needs to talk about. And the networking is, it's what got me here. And it's probably a technique I did for a long time, but probably saw, you, Chief Lasky, in full motion when you got here, and I picked up on it.
But did you get as many people pissed off as I did? I mean, I don't know. It feels like
so.
I had, golly, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No.
I was sending out a lot of ho-hos and cupcakes going, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that,
It's just important. It's important for chiefs to know that,
well,
if you like me, I only have 9 people on duty per day, and if that's all we're going to respond to a house fire, then we might as well just stay outside. And it's not going to happen. I need the support of departments like Frisco and the Colony and Aubrey every day. every day to do what we want to do to get the job done safely and to protect my citizens. So.
And those are paid and volunteer fire departments working together. So
that's correct.
And making it work well. Actually, I mean, it's you can't tell the players without a scorecard. And you guys catch a lot of work out there, a lot of work. And I listen if I'm not driving out that way myself. And everything seems to, we've always talked about the organized chaos on the fire ground. And when you get there, there's always that initial, we got this, we got that, and then everything just seems to click and come together. We take care of each other, and we go from there. So, well, Joey, I appreciate it, buddy. I know you're busy, and it's budget time for everybody to get you on the show. I guess, we've been talking on a bunch of different issues here. The biggie is probably just getting along. If you were going to title this one, I would call it getting along, and that addresses your growth. Right, Joe? It addresses the volunteer issues, combination departments paid, funerals, everything we talked about kind of just goes along with just getting along with everybody.
That's correct. It really is.
So. All right, buddy. Well, I appreciate you, pal. Keep everybody safe. Give everybody a hug at home, and thanks for your time, pal. Hey, we've been visiting with Chief Joe Florentino from the Little Elm, Texas Fire Department. A great guy, a progressive, forward-thinking person. They did a incredible job when they hired him. I remember I was there just swearing in, and I went to their city manager and said, "You did good here. You got a great guy who's 10 years from now is going to be talking about the great things going on in this community, and there are already great things happening." So, visiting with Chief Joe Florentino, I'm Rick Lasky. If you have any questions or you got any feedback or you want to get a hold of us, best way, shoot me an email either way. Don't shoot me, but shoot me an email either way at rick@prideandownership.com. rick@prideandownership.com, or you can email me at the office, and that's rlasky, and that's Lasky, at cityoflouisville.com. So with that, thanks. Keep reading the magazine. Keep going to that website, man. There's incredible things that fire engineering is doing. There's more to come. Who knows what Chief Halton and Diane Feldman, the whole cast there, and Glennie Corbett are going to drop on our doorstep next. It's always kind of neat to see what's happening. Every few months they come up with something new and innovative. So with that, as we always end these, take care of each other for real. Be a true brother or sister. Love the job. And as always, be safe.